Hello everybody, and today we're going to be checking out a scenario where Brazil from WICSO forms an empire. Now, I know that this would completely disregard the War of the Elites and the entire war and purpose that brought down Brazil and the coalition it faced, but we're just going to be completely disregarding that and giving Brazil some of the strongest military and economies in the entire world. If you guys do enjoy today's scenario, then please consider liking and subscribing. We are on the road for 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year. I am recording this, for me it is Saturday, but this will be coming out on Tuesday or Wednesday, I think, and by that time we might have already actually hit 1,000. But yeah, on that note, let's get straight into today's scenario. Now, like I mentioned earlier, of course, we're going to have to disregard the War of the Elites and the regime that Brazil was toppled down from. Now, you can see this coalition now is formed by like Colombia and Peru and these guys, the Ecuadorian states. They are the ones that form this coalition against Brazil. And of course, for this, scenario to work, we're going to have to make sure that we disregard that alliance. And now Brazil and the entire world, it's every country on their own. So Brazil is going to be doing a little bit of conquest, but also if you look at their ideology, they are going to have to put in a autocratic kind of like dictatorship. And this is so they can capture the will of the people and actually get that aspiration for war to go up. So now Brazil's people have an aspiration for war and every country's on their own, which is a perfect scenario for an empire. So Brazil's first course of action after their government shift is going to be the invasion of Uruguay. Now, I just realized these guys are not in Uruguay, these are like southeast Brazil. I'm not really sure what to call these guys, and it's scary and confusing, and I just want to wipe it off the map. Turning on the major cities, you can see that Brazil has already captured one, and they are on the course to capture another, and they do just that. Now, there are two divisions, one that's going to go out for this major city, and the other one is going to try and go down the coast. This is to both strangle their population and strangle their economic incentives, and their population now being under firm Brazilian control with the capturing of their last major city, and a big mass surrendering of military is going to occur in the north. And this division that's going south on the coast is going to, finally get to the capital and capture it. At this point, there's nobody living here, and all of them have defected over to the orange country or the red country because Brazil has fully annexed this territory. But with a major refugee crisis being observed over here in these states, we are going to see Brazil fully annex the teal team. So we see Brazil's first premonitionary expansion. And when I say premonitionary, Brazil isn't the one having the premonitions. Of course, it is these other countries that are sort of getting flashbacks. Looking at you, yellow team. But they are not going to stop, as they're going to go after a equally as populated nation, but definitely the size difference will present a challenge. And that is going to be Brazil versus the orange country. Now, these guys are as strong, if not debatably weaker than the teal team, despite being 3 or 4 times their size. 3 divisions show themselves, one here to capture rural population, one here in the east to capture the capital, and one out here to just capture this major city. And once you capture a major city, a lot of your divisions can just start to leak in, so eventually some individual generals are going to be able to act on their own, comprehension of what they should do. And with generals acting autonomously, this is going to go very well for Brazil, as the west of the orange team is going to fall to Brazilian forces. Eventually a spearhead is made which captures this major city, and then they just immediately diverge south, capturing this one. And modern military tactics are easy to implicate here since these countries are so unfathomably weak. Eventually, half of the capital is going to be sieged and captured, and with the invasion going very poorly for the orange team in the south, we are going to see the government is going to be forced to surrender. And in this case, once again, it is full annexation. Now you might be wondering, the teal citizens that went over to the orange team are now all in the red team. So that means that about half of the population that was teal team and their culture that was over here kind of spread out to the red team and to the orange team. But now the orange team is under Brazilian control, and now they're going to face persecution, in which they're going to go back here to the dark red country. So now the dark red country is having a very bad economic crisis, as their economy is now not being able to function with all of these immigrants coming over. But on the flip side, Brazil is forming their alliance very nicely. And it's not really going to stop very well, because now Brazil is going to go here into this green country. Now, a lot of these areas kind of broke away from Brazil following the War of the Elites, or I guess during it, because that was a Brazilian civil war. But during said civil war, a whole bunch of generals started acting autonomously like we saw in the orange country, and then they just formed their new states, so maybe Brazil should be a little bit wary of that. But the tactic definitely does work, as the capital is captured, and we actually see a old Brazilian ally is going to join this war. Actually, 2. You see the brown team is going to join, as well as the northern Chilean country. Now, all of these guys were part of the South American bloc, of course being a fascist bloc, and now with the unregulation, which was maintained by the Circle Alliance, but of course they did not exist anymore, But with that unregulation now being put in place, we see that the fascist bloc is going to be able to refine themselves here in the big, like modern day WICSO. Eventually, Brazilian forces are going to ramp up, now taking a lot of the northeastern and northwestern sections. And eventually, the Green Team is going to be forced to surrender to foreign operatives, and then they're just going to look like this. And now we can see the division and actual real peace treaty between multiple nations dividing up a singular state. Alright, and this is what we see our peace treaty looking like, and it might be a little bit confusing, so I will break it down. Of course, you see this major city here was the capital of the Green Team, so of course Brazil is going to inherit that, including also the territory around it. But interestingly enough, Brazil gave their old fascist allies a lot of territory, with a bulk of the territory actually going to the Yellow Team, and a lot of territory going to the Brown Team. And this was, of course, so that the Brazilian leader, now becoming, authoritarian and a dictatorship, they're now going to form or reform the Circle Alliance. Now, of course, this is not, the Circle Alliance, which exists in modern-day WICSO. This is going to be a brand new alliance that they are going to form kind of in remembrance of the South American bloc. And now it is starting to reform the South American Fascist Front. And the South Chileans are understandably shaking in their boots, as now they are surrounded by fascist countries. But war is coming for the entirety of South America, because now we're going to see Brazil continue their endeavors over here now in the northwest of the continent. Most of their invasions, well, all of their invasions so far have been primarily focused over here in the southeast of their country. But now we're going to see the exact opposite now in the northeast with the Ecuadorian state. Brazil is not going to have any allies included in this war because all of the actions that Brazil is performing are being denounced by these northwestern states. But maybe they should watch their mouths, because Brazil is definitely a fascist hungry power who might even just come after your country. The North surrenders, and without even actual Brazilian infantry being in the capital, they're going to be forced to surrender, and a faction inside the government is going to force the entire country to join Brazil. Now, I don't say join in the sense that all of people in Ecuador were open to this, but it's more join in the sense where the elites inside of the country just kind of went over to Brazil. But yeah, Brazil is starting to become a big boy. And they're not going to stop, as they're going to continue into the Ecuadorian states, but now we're going to see some countries are going to start to put their foot down. Specifically, Colombia and Peru, they are tired of Brazilian expansion for the second time in history. Of course, they're not going to do anything about it, because Venezuela and Peru, even combined, aren't even as strong as Brazil at this point. So they are just going to have to sanction them and denounce their actions, hopefully, so maybe a population could rise up, or a coup that would theoretically topple the fascist government. But that's not going to happen, as Ecuador surrenders and the nationality inside of Brazil is high, as now the entire country has been taken. So the Venezuelans and the Peruvians are going to have their guard let down, as now they were kind of expecting a big group of population inside of Brazil to try and rise up against the expansionist government, but it turns out that expansion with the people is very good. Remember, like I said, this war aspiration wasn't forced onto the people, it was actually adopted by the people. Of course, with some mild implications from the government. And I just realized my camera lighting has been really bad. Let me see if I can fix that. Okay, I think that's a little bit better, sorry about that. But Brazil is not very long, expanding all the way from the Pacific over here to the Atlantic. And I actually forgot to color in the Galapagos, so we can just go ahead and do that. And now Brazil is as far west as they've ever been. But now we're going to see a jumping of another country, and by the way I'm positioning the camera, you can basically guess what it's going to be. If you didn't guess already, it is going to be the jumping of this red team. Now, of course, the red team was taking in all of those immigrants, so their economy is still kind of reeling in from that crash. Of course, because the government in the red team is actually pretty ethical. If you look at the ideology map, they are a democracy. Well, not a full democracy, but a flawed democracy. But one of the policies are very pro, keep the people safe and happy and give them food and shelter. So they were kind of busy with that, while the other countries, including the fascist front, were able to build up their militaries and set up for this. And if you look at the religion map, a lot of the teal people were purple team religion. And Brazil is a primarily Mesopotamian-derived religion. Now, I'm not sure how much of an implication that would actually have. I'm not sure it's a religious persecution that Brazil would be enacting. But it would definitely be a persecution of the singular, culture of the teal team. But putting that aside, we are just going to see the colors on the map change a lot, because Brazil is going to be able to get very close to the big dot. And you do not want to lose your big dot, because if you lose your big dot, then your country is basically gone. The brown team advances are very good, and that is mostly for the reason that they are also being helped out by the northern Chileans. But eventually the rest is going to fall over to Brazilian forces, and the capital is going to be sieged. So now all of the people that were inside the teal team are now over here in the capital. This is the one safe place that they could easily get to. But now brown team military is going to move their way up the peninsula, and the capital is going to be sieged from two sides. And eventually the red team is inevitably taken out. So now we can take a look at a peace treaty that will be very bad for the citizens of the teal and dark red teams, but also for the federal government. Alright, and this is what we see our peace treaty looking like, which will be the formal division of the dark red team. As you can see, they are white and not their original color, and that is because their color is going to be replaced, as the south is going to be taken by the brown team, and the north is going to be taken by Brazil. Now, Brazil has expanded to territories unknown to them. They have never really occupied these areas, like, formally. Of course, they did when it was in World War, like, I think 4 or 5, and they occupied these areas with military, but it has never really been integrated into their territory. But the fascist front is doing very well. If I color it all in white, you can, like, zoom out, and you're like, oh yeah, the big white spot, that's the fascist front. But Brazil is going to focus their military elsewhere, as now it's going to be shifted over to the north. And they are going to go after a very familiar country, and that is going to be Venezuela, but not in the way you'd think. They're going to fund a rebellion, which will be opened over here near the capital regions. And this will be a pro-fascist totalitarian rebellion where the people want that war aspiration, the same that the Brazilian citizens were feeling. And now Brazil, seeing that the rebellion that was funded by them, they're just going to blatantly lie, and they're going to be like, oh, these guys have like the same like ideology as us, and they want what we have, so why don't we just give it to them? Now, of course, the leader of the Orange Rebellion and the Brazilian leader are in contact, and they are actively working this out. Because, like I said, like 5 times, Brazil is funding this Orange Rebellion, and it is starting to move around very quickly, as a lot of pockets which were funded by the Brazilians are going to open up. And one is even going to open up around the Brazilian front line, which is a little bit suspicious. But eventually the Colombian Civil War is going to induce. Now, of course, a civil war is already bad on its own, but when you have a foreign country invading you that's much stronger than you, that makes basically it's impossible to come back from. Because if you remember in the War of Elites, when America fell, they were facing a civil war, and they were like the strongest country in the world, and they fell to that. And there was not even an outside power invading them. This just shows the sheer nationality that people can uphold against their governments, and now we're going to see that being demonstrated here in Venezuela with the surrendering of their country. And now we can take a look at this peace treaty between the Brazilians, Colombians, and the Venezuelans. Alright, and this is what we see our peace treaty looking like. As you can see, the teal Colombians have been completely eradicated and replaced by a new fascist Brazilian-ensued government. Of course, with the policies of this country being very similar to Brazil, they are going to join the South American fascist bloc because their policies most wellly align with the Brazilians. I don't know, what's wrong with my sentences? I said they don't very align welly. I'm not British, I swear. Alright, well anyways, going away from my very bad sentence things, yeah. We're gonna see the brown team actually do something by themselves. And that's gonna be the invasion of the Argentinian state. Now, of course, Argentina down here has existed, and I think they've been neutral since, like, the collapse of the Irish Empire, which was episode 53. And, of course, they haven't been entirely neutral. If I just kind of be a little counterintuitive, they are in the Circle Alliance, which is dissolved for this scenario, but they are, you know, in that alliance in real WICSO. But without that alliance kind of securing their sovereignty is just going to go over to the brown team, which is just going to absorb it. And of course, when you eradicate the sovereignty of a single country, you're going to be able to replace that sovereignty with your own. And now the brown team, and henceforth the fascist front, has expanded tenfold. Well, not tenfold, it was already really big, and if it was like tenfold, it would take over the entire world. But it's expanded a lot. And also, I keep referring it to the fascist front, but I keep forgetting that this is a Brazilian empire video. So it's still kind of the sense of that, but it's kind of also like, what if the fascist front reformed? Or at least tried to. Oh, now they're just gonna go after Peru. And yeah, this is just about what you'd expect, kind of just your generic invasion. Yep, and these guys are going to join because they are in the fascist front. Then Brazilian, people that were just stationed in Ecuador after they took these guys, they're just going to go ahead and threaten the capital city in a matter of like mere weeks. And the yellow team is just going to have unwavering support by the people. I don't know what's gone over these people. I thought the age of aggression was over, but I guess polarization is strong inside of the Peruvian country. Anyways, Brazil captured their capital, and like I said earlier in regards to these guys, the dark red team, if your big dot goes away, then that is very bad. So, yeah, now their country is going to go bye-bye. And now we can take a look at a peace treaty. Why did I smile? This is fascism. You know, of course, fascism being ensued by these countries. I swear I'm not a fascist. Alright, and in this peace treaty, we see the full division of Peru, of course, being between Brazil and the northern Chileans. And the Brazilians are going to take this northern segment, actually getting a bulk of the territory, and the northern Chileans are going to take that. And now there's only one country that remains that is not a part of the fascist bloc, and that is the red Chileans. And let's just say that they are not going to exist for a lot longer, as they are going to force a government shift. And of course, when the fascist bloc is going to culminate this treaty, that they're like, okay, if you turn fascist and you join the bloc, then like we won't invade you. And then these guys are like, no, we're communist. We're like pure communist. Their society works fine, kind of. So yeah, the red team, I'm not gonna doubt. Like they're kind of strong. That sentence was everywhere, but. In regards to the red team, their government is not working very well right now. They did inherit a lot of the old Lime Team colony, and I know the North and the South was very different, and this is actually the original colony, but, you know, the Lime Team, they fell, and their government, the red team government, which derived directly from the Lime Team government, they're just gonna just not be very good. You know, in a sense that the Lime Team government wasn't very good either. But yep, just a little yap sesh over, and my excuses for these guys being absolutely demolished and henceforth being eradicated. And now we can look at a peace treaty dividing up the red team. And yeah, in this peace treaty, we see something very similar that we've seen happen. Just one line that is going to divide up a very big country. And the yellow team is going to take the northern segments over here. You can see they take that. And the brown team is going to take a monstrously large piece of land, now basically encompassing the entire thing. And these red little pixels are pissing me off, so we can just get rid of them. There we go. And yeah, now the entirety of South America is fascist. Henceforth, Brazil has completed their empire. Now, of course, you have this thing, and that would not allow you to do this. And even if they did, just like local coalitions could form, definitely America and Mexico would have something to say about this. But too bad, because Brazil has officially formed their empire. And on that note, we will finish today's video. I hope you guys did enjoy. If you did enjoy, then please consider liking and subscribing. Go join the Discord server and turn on that notification bell so you can be notified whenever I upload. Remember, we are trying to hit 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year, and all of your support is greatly appreciated. And on that note, I will see you guys in tomorrow's video.